Welcome back, folks. I'm Frizz, and today I'd like to take some time to talk about martial classes in Pathfinder 2nd Edition. There's quite a few martial classes out there in 2e, so I'd like to take some time to sum up what makes each one unique and stand out from the rest. I basically exclusively play martial characters, and I can confidently say that every martial class is great, so let's get into it because this is going to be a long video. Alchemists are one of the weirdest classes in the game, and while they do have a reputation for being a little bit bad, that isn't really accurate. Playing an alchemist well can be a bit challenging because there's a lot to learn, but by preparing the right alchemical items and using them in the right moments, alchemists can be incredibly fun and very impactful. There are so many different alchemical items in the game now, and alchemists can use basically all of them better than anyone else. While the alchemist might not always seem to make the biggest impact, they can make their entire party as a whole dramatically more versatile. In contrast to the alchemist, barbarians are about as straightforward of a class as you can get. Barbarians are fueled by their rage, though the exact nature of that rage depends on your barbarian instinct. Sometimes it's an inner rage, but it can also be a supernatural rage that comes from somewhere else. Either way, barbarians hit harder than just about everyone else, and they can take a beating better than everyone else in the game. Barbarians are wonderful at hitting problems enough until they cease to exist and taking hits that no one else can. Champions are the most defensive class in the game, but the important part is that their defensive prowess isn't just limited to themselves. Having a champion in the party dramatically increases everyone's survivability, especially if that champion follows the tenets of good. Seriously, having a champion makes a very noticeable difference. While they aren't a classic tank, they are the closest thing that Pathfinder 2e has, and they're also way easier to cooperate with than traditional paladins. I know that I just said that barbarians are about as straightforward of a class as you can get, but really the fighter is the most simple. Fighters are special because they are very, very accurate, and masters of their specific weapons, while still being just as good with weapons as everybody else until like level 19. While barbarians might hit harder and monks might be more flexible, fighters are just consistency incarnate, and while that is really basic, it's also really, really good. Plus, having attack of opportunity is a huge boost in 2e, and all fighters have it from level 1. To continue the theme of accuracy, Gunslingers specialize in weapons that require reloading. While this is mostly guns, it is totally feasible to play a Gunslinger that only uses crossbows if you want to play a Gunslinger in a setting that doesn't have guns. Whenever you're using a firearm, Gunslingers are often going to be looking for critical hits, which is good because they are just as accurate as fighters with crossbows and firearms. While they might not have the most consistent damage output, seeing as ranged weapons generally have lower damage rolls than melee weapons, when they do land a critical hit, you're going to know it because, honestly, someone's probably dead. Plus, they have way more ways to interact with reloading a weapon than any other class in the game, and they also have a lot of really good supportive abilities. Inventors are another uncommon class, and they're also a great way to play a mad scientist character if the alchemist isn't up your alley. They create their own special weapon, armor, or clockwork friend, and then they can power them up by churning them up into overdrive. Inventors are an absolute blast and can fill a bunch of different roles, but they fulfill the fantasy of someone who just jury-rigs a weapon together in a way that really should not work, but it's somehow incredibly effective. Really, inventors are shockingly versatile, and they also do pretty fantastic damage. The other way to use intelligence as a martial character is to be an investigator. The best way to describe how investigators feel is, you know that scene of Robert Downey Jr.'s Sherlock Holmes where he plans how to beat the crap out of someone and then follows through on the plan? Yeah, that's just investigators in combat. Investigators are the only class in the game that can use their intelligence for weapon strikes. And they also have easily, I would say, the second best skill proficiencies in the game. While their abilities and feats aren't always a perfect match for every campaign, like, say, dungeon crawls, when they do come up, investigators are absolutely fantastic. Now, before you comment anything, yes, the Magus is a martial class. While they do have access to spells, and they are going to be using magic frequently, Maguses fill basically the same role as a martial character in every party. They hit stuff and take hits. If you want to play a spell-blade sort of character, then this is the class that is literally just designed for that character concept. In my experience, there are two ways to play a Magus. Either you use spells to cover problems that arise or buff or debuff enemies, or you just try and do the most damage in a single turn possible in the system. While Magus's damage on each turn might be a little bit lower than like a fighter or a barbarian, when they do hit, and especially if they crit, they have some of the highest highs in the entirety of Pathfinder 2e. Monks are one of my favorite classes in Pathfinder 2e, and a big reason for that is that they are incredibly flexible. In fact, I would say that flexibility is the main fixation of the monk class overall. Whenever you combine that monks can make 2 attacks in a single action using Flurry of Blows, and also their incredibly fast movement speed, monks can do more in each given turn than most classes can. Really, like a monk can probably stride and make 2 attacks, when basically every other martial class is going to have to stride twice, then make a single attack. Yeah, a barbarian is going to hit harder on each given strike than a monk, but monks are just stupidly flexible. There's more to the class, but that flexibility is their main feature. Whereas in previous edition, rangers were sort of magical hunters who focused on specific types of creatures and specific terrains, in Pathfinder 2e, the core aspect of rangers is that they're the best class in the game at dealing with single targets. There still absolutely is the nature guide aspect of the class. However, it's a lot more minor, and you can still expand on it massively through feats. At their core, though, rangers specialize in dealing with whomever they're hunting at any given moment. Flair rangers are really the only class in the game where it's actually a good idea to use all of your attacks to strike. Precision rangers can deal huge amounts of damage in a single hit, and outwit rangers are incredibly good at using skills, versus their prey in particular. Really, rangers are just so much better in 2e than they've ever been in a different edition in my eyes. Rogues also have had a little bit of redefining done to them, though not nearly as much as rangers. While rogues are still fantastic at stabbing you in your vital organs, now they're 100% the best characters in the game when it comes to skills. They get twice as many skill increases and skill feats as basically every other class in the game, which is actually absurd. While rogues aren't going to be objectively better at a skill than someone who's specializing in that skill, they're going to be just as good with a ton of other skills, because they can increase way more skills up to the maximum proficiency level allowed for their level. Seriously, other classes' skill capabilities pale in comparison to any rogues. Also, they are the only way to get dex to damage in the game if that's your thing. Summoners are very similar to the Magus, in that while they are a spellcaster, they easily fill a similar role in a party as a martial character. They can summon their Eidolon at any given moment, and then that just means that they're 2 characters in one. While their Eidolon won't be as strong a martial as a full martial PC, when combined with the summoner's spellcasting capability, it more than makes up for the loss. Seriously, I would describe the Eidolon as 75% of a martial character, and the summoner as 75% of a spellcaster, which is really good. Plus, they have the wackiest action economy in the entire game. Swashbucklers are a bit of an interesting class, and most likely my favorite class in the entire game. I'm biased though, since my first 2e character was a swashbuckler. At their core, swashbucklers are focused around using certain skills in combat to enter into panache, and then using that panache to either deal really big damage or utterly style on their foes, or maybe both at the same time. Swashbucklers don't really have as high of a damage output as other martial classes, and they can struggle a bit in fights against high-level foes because it's harder to get into panache. However, they are still an absolute blast to play and are exceptionally good when you lean more into a supportive role. They can still dish out huge amounts of damage with their finishers, but absolutely clowning on people you're fighting and making your allies look fabulous isn't always about damage. The final martial class that's currently released as of recording this is the Thelma Turge, and boy is it a weird one. The Thelma Turge is all about using esoteric and occult lore to find the exact weakness of literally everything that you're fighting, and then convincing reality that that weakness actually exists, even if that creature normally doesn't actually have a weakness. They have incredible damage output, are fantastic at identifying creatures, and actually have a ridiculous amount of build versatility, possibly more than any other class in the game. Seriously, they have 9 different implements to choose from. They choose a total of 3 of them from levels 1 to 20, and then they increase the potency of their implements 3 different times. It's an absurd class in the best way possible. If you want to play a monster hunter and not just someone who's good at fighting in a general sense, the Thelma Turge is utterly fantastic. Alright then, that's all of them, huh? Paizo really put a lot out already in 2e, haven't they? Every class in 2e has their own identity, and I adore how different every single class actually feels to play. Since they all have their own mechanics, no classes feel the same all the time, and that makes playing different characters so much more fun than just full attacking every turn like in Pathfinder 1st Edition. Really, the martial class design in 2e is almost perfect. Alright, so this video really didn't help my voice get less hoarse, now did it? Well, anyway, I hope that this overview helped give people a new perspective on at least one class, or helped introduce anyone new to Pathfinder 2e to a variety of classes. I know it can be a lot. Also, I'm planning on making a full video on the Alchemist, since I have some thoughts to get out there. Well, let me know what you think in a comment down below, and tell me what I got wrong or what I missed. I'm sure that I did get things wrong and miss things. Also, if you'd like, consider subscribing and joining the channel. Joining the channel as a member is the best way to support me. Regardless of that though, until I see you next, live a wonderful life.